Okay, so today we are also going to have this session as a highly interactive session. Uh, this is a short one. We will not extend more than 45-50 minutes. We are going to extend the Q&A session today, as well as a feedback session with all the candidates and the participants. What I feel is attendance is going down a slight amount, so we would like to know the specific reason. Okay, friends, today we start our 12th session. It's a small one, interesting one, but extremely impacting uh, for three or four critical reasons. The product that we are showing for re-engineering or retrofitting that we're talking about is the same one that is going to be taken up in the practicals during your sessions at Hyderabad. Now, to be very frank, when we talk about re-engineering of internal combustion engines, Uh, we are talking today bike to electric bike, which is part two. This can be done for auto, which is ICE auto. It can be done for a diesel or a petrol car, and you can also extend it to a bus or a truck. When we talk about re-engineering, essentially the core critical components that we are talking about is what is the difference between, say, a petrol or ICE engine and the electrical engine. Primarily, the core component is the engine, which creates the torque or the energy which is converted into mechanical energy and finally passed on to the chassis and which moves. So when we are talking of re-engineering, we are changing this critical component. You already covered part of it in part one. This is the part two. Now we will be taking up critically on the market scenario, challenges of retrofitting, design and development for re-engineering, and frankly, this is also the gateway to designing a new vehicle. We've had more than around 130, 140 years of experience now as vehicles that we are talking about. When I talk about vehicles, essentially, just a second, we are talking of petrol vehicles. And because of this sound and strong history, we have a huge market which is already booming with the petrol vehicles or the fuel or ICE engines or internal combustion engines. We will go over to the next one, which is challenges of retrofit. It is market specific, different markets undergo different kind of challenges. And last is the design and development for re-engineering. So we will take up on the market scenario first. Now, you guys will be seeing a graph. If you kind of see on your particular mobile or your phone, uh, if you see, this is 2011. Can you see my pointer out here in 2011? Now here it is just crossing 1 crore or 1 lakh, sorry, 100 lakhs, 101 lakh 0.77, 1.77, which is slightly above 1 crore or 111 lakhs and 77,000 some odd figure. Now this is the registration figure of petrol two-wheelers, which is essentially scooters and bikes, and this is for India. So we are talking of the year 2011. Frankly, at that time, the electrical vehicle had not started at all. The only business was being conducted was in e-rickshaw to some extent, which was with lead acid batteries. Yes, we had an electric car at that time, again driven by lead acid batteries called Riva. It was a Bangalore-based startup, gradually which was overtaken by Mahindra and Mahindra Group. But it was early years, nascent years. Now, if you look at the entire gradual, transformation from there onwards, we had peaked in 2019 at 1.18, which is close to 2 crore 11 lakh 18,000 some odd amount. Now, this was a huge peak, and then we suddenly dipped in the year 2020. Now this was also the time of COVID. If you look at 2019 and 20, it was dipped. Now, frankly, this is the registration figures from CMVR officially published. And thereafter, again in 21, it dipped. But this year, if you see, we have, literally speaking, we will be back and we have a significant contribution which is coming up from the electrical vehicles also. So more than 22.5 crore two-wheelers purchased in last 15 years, which is a huge value and sum. I mean, if you look at it from a population point of view, considering that 50% of our population is in the age bracket which can drive vehicles, so nearly 22.5 crores is roughly around 35 to 38% of our overall population. That is significant. India predominantly moves on two-wheelers, which is bikes and scooters all across, especially the middle class, which dominates in India. More than 1.5 crore two-wheelers will be scrapped each year, because if you look at the CMVR and the NCT region, as well as the anti-pollution scheme, plus the typical life of a petrol engine, it gives up within 11 to 12 years, and thereafter needs to be scrapped, because initially we didn't have such easy methodologies of simply changing the engine, and the CMVR hinders us from changing the engine on the vehicle. Technically, if the chassis and the engine is changed, the vehicle cannot legally ply on the road. This is as per our Central Motor Vehicle Regulation Act. Looking at the numbers now, this we have taken only 15 years, which is approximately, we are in 2022. So I am talking from 2007 till date. India, we have been selling petrol vehicles right since independence time. So if you look at it, overall, the junk that we have probably collected would be another 24 to 25 crores, out of which reusable junk specifically in the two-wheeler, because two-wheeler actually started contributing to numbers only in 1970s onwards, when Bajaj had come out with its first product of the scooter. The current generation is pretty young. They may not have seen the Bajaj Chetaks, but if you ask people from our generation or your probably parents, they would fondly remember it. So is it possible to give rebirth to a few and prolong the life of your two-wheelers? That's the big question. Now, this has two critical answers to it. One, obviously, there is a challenge in the compliance side. When we look at the compliance segment, compliance essentially means licensing of such vehicles. The government of India's policies are not so easy. They are a bit stringent and sometimes harsh, because there are a lot of competing interest groups which do not want the second-hand vehicle. Plus, second-hand vehicle has its intrinsic issues. There may be problems with the chassis, the structure of the vehicle. It may not be safe to ride such vehicles. But nonetheless, because of modularity of the electrical vehicles, as we will go through, we'll understand that. Now, typically, the weight of a vehicle is 70 kgs plus or minus 20-25 kgs, depending upon what vehicle you are. Whether you are having a scooter or a bike, this is approximately the weight, gross dead weight, as it is called. It is primarily composed of aluminum, which is part of the engine, and remaining is all iron. Today, if you look at it, the scrap value of iron, it's somewhere between 16 to maximum of 21-22 rupees. Beyond that, if you go for trying to selling your vehicles at 11 or 12 years of aging, it will be difficult to get it sold. So say if it is a 10-year or a 12-year-old vehicle, and virtually the engine has conked off, I mean, it's lived its life of more than 2 lakh kilometers, its maintenance become very difficult, and typically it is nicely packed up and kept in the corner of a room, unless and until if it is not discarded off. The second part that we're going to cover now is market assessment for e-mobility and battery industries. It is estimated that approximately 7,95,000 additional jobs will be created during the period of 2019 onwards till 2024, growing at 80% CAGR, compounded annual growth rate. Primarily because the electric vehicles contribution vis-a-vis the petrol vehicle is minuscule. So there are two major contributors. One, market grows naturally. I mean, whatever the figure it is sitting at, the next year it will obviously grow by 3, 4, 5% to 6%. The second major contributor is there is a significant chunk of customers and consumers which is shifting over from petrol-based vehicles to electrical-based vehicles. A, there is a genuine concern for environment. B, pocket-wise, electric vehicles overhead cost is much lower compared to petrol vehicles. Now, government is planning to create a workforce specializing in various areas of EV manufacturing, including design and testing, battery manufacturing, management, sales, services, and infrastructure. In fact, as of August 26, Government of India has already passed a regulation on the electrical batteries, where they have tightened the processes of testing of the batteries. Now it won't be as easy as it used to be before, and they have put in something called as a AIS 0156. So numbers in the red box that you see in the particular graph, uh, you know, green is being contributed by the design, blue is the service, and red box signifies total employee count in the financial year. So we are already sitting in the year 2022. Previous 2 years were hindered more because of the COVID related scenarios. But if you look at numbers, in fact, today on paper, India is probably the only country which is growing at a rate of more than 10%. We clocked in 13.5% of growth rate this quarter on our GDP. This is like a crazy figure. Worldwide it is a recession. India is actually on the growing path. It is a bit surprising considering that we import our petroleum, we import a lot of things. But a critical component that we make and manufacture here is our entire iron ore is found in India itself. That's a major strength for us. And a significant chunk of iron also goes. I mean, obviously, everybody's running after lithium and cobalt and battery technology, electronics. But iron also consumes a significant chunk. Your core structure of the chassis is developed and built by iron itself. A lot of the metal covering is done by iron itself. So we need not forget that. Yes, it is obviously a low cost material found abundantly specifically in India. We should try to mobilize on that. So if you look at the last quadrant, we are talking of nearly 8,35,000 jobs. This is in just 2 years down the road. And this is going to come primarily from the factor that EV is already a craze, and soon, you are starting to see lots and lots of, various kind of vehicles. Also, it's a disruptive kind of a field because there was a time when to put up a petrol vehicle plant, you require 200 to 300 crores in your pocket. Now you and me can do it. We just need 25, 30 lakhs, maybe 50 lakh rupees to start up an electric vehicle manufacturing unit, assembling unit, or maybe a retailing or a sales unit, a dealership, a mini service plant. Uh, Essentially, it is revolutionizing a lot of significant chunks. So uh, you guys are in for a good time if you stick to this particular field. And this is also one area where a lot of IoTs are being built upon the vehicles. So when I say IoT, because electrical vehicle has a significant electronic chunk, so it also allows you to add on to a lot of computerizing and automation elements, which includes trying to map the vehicle, mapping the movement. In fact, your generation may be the first generation which will start seeing autonomous vehicles deployment, which is essentially driverless vehicles. We are still not reached there, but another 5, 6 years, our artificial intelligence would have smoothed out the rough edges that this can come and become a practical reality. In fact, I clearly visualize 2030 or 2031, maybe we will not require drivers, at least in four-wheelers. Two-wheelers, still we don't have that self, balancing technology prominently available. So we may still be in the driver's seat, but nonetheless, in four-wheelers, I'm quite confident it will come through. Now, status of EV re-engineering market in India. No, Market forecast to 2025, e-rickshaws, e-autos, and e-two-wheelers are most promising segments of the electrification in India, expected to account for over 4 million units by 2025. For a developing country like India, there are obviously lot of stops and breaks because existing players do not want the retrofitting to come up prominently. If you see the segmentation, the first one is two-wheeler market. So this is nearly 30 lakhs that we are talking about. Now today, probably 1,30,000. This is the officially registered status that we're talking about. Very few companies which are actually come up with a official retrofitting this thing क्या बोलते हैं, kit, primarily because of the high cost of homologation or compliance cost is very high. I'll take up a session on the compliance. On e-rickshaws, as you see, 4,20,000 to 10 lakh. Now, to be very frank, it is 2 lakhs because the e-rickshaw itself is not a very costly vehicle. Between 1,25,000 to 1,50,000, you get it. And it is predominated by suppliers from north because maximum amount of revolution in the electric vehicle field actually took place in the last decade. And this being a commercial vehicle is a very, very useful, friendly for job creation kind of activity. If you look at all our e-commerce vendors and ventures, this is very critically required in three-wheelers and two-wheelers. In three-wheelers, they actually utilize L5 vehicle, and if you would have seen it across in Bangalore, in Hyderabad, you have many multiple such companies like eTrio, etc., which are already selling this to last mile operators for Amazon, Flipkart, Big Basket, Licious, a lot of other online e-commerce companies. Gradually now, if you look at Delhi, we have a plethora of e-autos which have started coming up. It's primarily because of the government policy, which is focused on having more and more electrical vehicles. Delhi is one of the most polluted cities, not only in India but across the world. And 7 to 8% of the pollution is contributed by the vehicles on the road. So government policy is to get majority of these ICE vehicles off the road and getting them replaced by electrical vehicles. Third segment that we talk about is e-auto, which will see the maximum growth, 108x. This is a underutilized kind of a market, and this will really see a major chunk, a major jump from just 5,000 to more than 5,40,000. In fact, there is a company called M Auto, which is based out of Chennai, Gindi. They are already significantly into it. Their demand is so much that they are unable to fulfill it. They have production facilities in Salem, down south, and they're always short of parts and components to supply to the market. The third one is the e-passenger car. This will take some time. I mean, though we feel that it will jump 105x, this is one area that government has not come out with too much of policy. Right now, the policy is focused on new vehicles only. They want to see the industry settling down, and it will be gradually opened. And last is e-bus, which today I would say we have started seeing the initial sprinkling. Plus, we have a technology challenge there because we have hydrogen e-buses which are also started coming in now. So over a period of time, we will see which technology finally becomes a runner. But right now, it's predominated by lithium batteries. So if you see the entire graph, maximum action is out here in the two-wheeler segment. And this is what we're going to take it up. This followed by your e-rickshaw, e-auto segment. This is the second major chunk. Passenger car, because of the cost of investment in the battery, one passenger car, the battery itself is around 3 lakhs to 5 lakhs. Rest is the effort that you put into the motor controller, compliance, etc., which is packed up in less than 1.5 to 2 lakhs. But the battery cost is a significant chunk. And last but not the least, the e-bus, because a bus cost upwards of 1.5 crore, vis-a-vis say 50 to 60 lakhs, maximum 70 lakhs that a petrol bus or a diesel bus cost you. So if you see the major action that you're going to say in future, and the job creation is going to be in the two-wheeler and the three-wheeler industry. That's where it is coming to right now. What are the challenges of the re-engineering? We will define it in four major quadrants. Uh, First is the technical part. Second is financial. Third is customer acceptance, and fourth is safety. Technically speaking, we have ample amount of technology and presence of manpower, but there are very few companies which are trying to attempt it on a very structured manner. Incidentally, e-oxygen is also one such company. uh, that is our company which focuses on that. Now, first, as it is mentioned, adequate power. No, it is very difficult to presume what kind of power and what kind of vehicles we should ideally fit in. When I say power, I mean to say the motor voltage as well as the wattage of the motor. This is critical because you can technically run electric two-wheeler on a 48 volt, a 60 volt, or a 72 volt configuration. Normally, beyond 72 volt, it is not required because it was over-engineered. No, the vehicle will become a super fast vehicle, difficult to control and manage. Merger of two drives. When you say merger of two drives, essentially it's a hub motor. Completely electronic control. The mechanical part is completely moved out. Everything shifts over to the electronics, which is your motor power, the torque generating equipment, which is the motor, completely becomes electrical, and the speed control, which ideally used to be there with gear, clutches, and accelerator in a petrol vehicle, also is done completely by electrical or electricity. So that is how we call it merger of two drives. Regenerative braking, again, it's a complicated technology because regenerative braking means the battery is charged simultaneously when you are not accelerating, but it needs to be fine tuned. If you have a very hard regenerative braking, the moment you stop accelerating, the vehicle will suddenly come to a stop. If you have too soft of it, it will hardly charge the battery. So nonetheless, battery charging is a minuscule 1%, 2% while you are driving, which is not adequate. You still require a permanent station where you can get it charged, and you will require a third party source of electricity like your plug board to charge from, or maybe a solar point to charge from. And last but not the least, the storage technology. When I say storage technology, is the battery. Battery, if you go on lead acid, they are very heavy, humongous. For two-wheeler, it is a challenge because a vehicle cannot carry more than 20-25 kgs of battery weight. Uh, that is a challenge. Now, the best that I have seen batteries, people do claim for 400, 500 miles, but to be very frank, the battery will be a monstrous heavy item inside the vehicle. Dead weight of say 80-90 kgs, the battery itself consumes nearly 25 to 30% of the weight. So more distance you want to travel, say if you want to go a 150 to 200 kilometer plus on a two-wheeler, you have to have a powerful battery or a mechanism to recharge it intermittently at a very short interval. The way you fill up your petrol tank is how you should get. So that we are still to reach there. We have not yet reached to that many charging stations, and that's being appropriately being replaced like a battery swapping station. And these are various business models which will come into play as we see. So this is a segment which is in for a very uh, surprising, exciting future. The second part, as I told you, is financial part. Cost of product, cost of fuel as proportion of total cost of operations. Now, when I say financial, because retrofitting is still not, come up from a gray market to a formally declared, settled down kind of a market. So bankers are not quite willing to fund it right now because motor comes from a different source, battery comes from a different source. Some mechanic is probably trying to fit it to make a retrofitting kind of a vehicle. So how does a customer get protected? We are attempting to bring it together under our zip service franchises, but that's still some distance away. We have a couple of centers in Chennai and other places, but that's still some distance away as to how we can organize and give that as a very structured manner so that customers care is taken care of properly. Because at the end of the day, motor company is different, battery company is different, electronic company is different, and all of these components have to be given combined service at a single point to a customer. Plus, these companies are only component sellers. They are not selling it as a package deal where they also give you the number plate and other such compliance support, which can allow it to become viable on the field. So this component has been missing. Some companies have attempted, but as I told you, India is not very compliant friendly country. You have to go through a lot of testing and approvals. It's far more easy to open a low speed vehicle company in India, which also something on a compliance front, government of India is stopped. Third quadrant, which is customer acceptance, because of the previous quadrant, certainty of benefit, peace of mind, and cost. A retrofit kit would cost you anywhere between 27,000 to 45,000 rupees. Add on to it the battery factor. So the entry cost is between, if you go on lead acid batteries, it's around 40,000 rupees. Go to lithium ion, it goes to 65,000 rupees. So if you put in additional 10-15,000 rupees, you can as well as buy in 75,000, you can buy a new plastic scooter, electric scooter, low speed scooter, non-registration number plate scooter. So for 10-15,000, customer dissonance is high. So obviously we need to see what best can be done by the market. But nonetheless, he gets an additional 14-15,000 rupees of extra benefit. Because you need to remember that virtually you are changing the entire engine. You're changing the entire battery is new, the motor controller is new. The only part old in that existing vehicle is just the structure and the body. The customer has a tendency, or any individual would have a tendency, purana gadi, old vehicles 55,000 conversion cost, new vehicle 65 to 70,000. His own vehicle would hardly cost him 3 to 4,000 rupees if he sells even on the scrap market. So this is something which customers have had as an issue. I've had lot of customer discussions on that. Last but not the least is peace of mind. Once it is retrofit, I don't need to go to the mechanic every now and then. Now these are three critical components which is hindering the customer to adopt it. Otherwise, it is a cost-effective manner. If the customer really wants on a e-rickshaw motor, which is a coaxial hub motor, not a hub motor, it's a coaxial mid-mount motor, a bike can be retrofitted. We will try to showcase you a video. I will share that with you where we have done a retrofitting of a mid-mount Hero Splendor, where a e-rickshaw motor is pretty cheap, 1 kilowatt, 5.5-6,000 rupees motor. If you configure that with a good mechanic and a lead acid battery, you actually can get on a second-hand bike to the entire concept done in 20,000 rupees or less. Mechanic has to be good. That's the critical factor. So we have a video on that. We will share it with Edify Path will share that pretty soon, which is a mid-mount motor. Last but not the least is vehicle balance structure. Now you need a professional to do it. You simply cannot have just your own practical experience to get it executed, because a little bit of axle here or there may make the vehicle wobbly. Your rear axle not fitting properly may create slight bends where the vehicle will not drive perfectly. Second is fire. Battery, what you are doing is obviously rudimentarily installed. You need proper structures. We will showcase you one vehicle once we go through these slides. Explosion, because battery at the end of the day, if you're using lithium, you need to take care of all the relevant protections as mandated by the government. May have a catastrophic failure. Going at a high speed and suddenly the power conks off, you've got a heavy speed vehicle coming behind you, so it may create a problem. Now we talk about the design and development of re-engineering of a bike. Now this is the most critical thing. Now friends, just have a very good look on this particular slide, because this is the bike that we are going to showcase to you when we meet in Hyderabad. Now, this is configured to some of the best components available in the Indian market. We have redesigned it on a Honda Shine, which is a 125cc bike. 125cc bike, maximum Speed does around 110 kilometers. It has a, I think, 12 liter or a 14-liter tank. We have not removed the tank to showcase the seamlessness of the entire vehicle. But if you look at the engine part is missing. If you zoom on the bike itself, you will find that engine part is missing. Now take your time onto this particular slide because this is the bike we are going to show. So if you see below the engine, or rather below the petrol tank, which is not a petrol tank in this vehicle anymore, it just uses to case the electronics. You'll see a fairly big, I mean, if you can see my mouse, you will see a fairly big box kind of a material with small, charging vent that we have given. It's open towards the top. This portion, it is open. And there is a steel rim which, holds the vehicle. There is a base plate, which is an iron plate on which the battery is positioned. The motor, as you see, is on alloy wheels. Now today, EMF has started building such kind of motors. The one which is configured on this is a Chinese motor. It's a 2 kilowatt motor. The range on this particular vehicle, because this is configured on a 72 volt 40 Ah battery pack, that is a lot of power, 2.9 kilowatts. The brakes are disc front and back, both are disc. If you again see to it, on the front brake is visible clearly as a disc brake. Rear brake is on the other side, it is not visible, but both are disc brakes. Disc brake is a more powerful medium of brake. It can manage vehicles which are slightly on a higher side. In fact, on car, you only have disc brakes on all the 4 vehicles. Drive modes are eco and power. In fact, there are 3 drive modes. Your start, eco and power. Eco is the most economical mode that will give you maximum distance and range. The battery charging time is around 4 to 5 hours. It takes time if you normally plug at your residential buildings. It's a 10 amp charger on 72 volt, and 72 volt is one of the highest voltage as far as Indian economic scenario is concerned. Its top speed is around 90 kilometers per hour. The meter is still configured, the speedometer is still configured to a mechanical one. Yes, SOC voltmeter is an electronic one that is configured. The vehicle model is a Honda Shine, if you can see. Now, if you look at it, we have started breaking up. There are other vehicles that Oxygen is designing and delivering, which are monoshockers. This is a dual shocker. Dual shocker basically means the rear side, if you see, you have a shocker on right and left. Monoshocker, you have a single shocker between your rear swing arm and your main body. So this is one of the most beautifully done and design developed vehicle that we have. It runs on the Indian roads. It's been applied for, but yes, authorities have not approved and given a green signal to this. Nonetheless, they are okay with the education version being utilized for the sake of study. We're going to bring this particular version of machine to you. When we are doing this particular vehicle, what is the primary objective that for our batch members to design an electric bike to travel a distance of 100 kilometers on a single battery charge. So this is considering whatever you have available in the market. And the vehicle should look ergonomically beautiful. I mean, if you look at the side look of this entire vehicle, it looks beautiful, neatly done, properly cased. Basic design concept uses the frame of a fuel-powered motorbike, which is a Honda Shine 125cc. The front and rear shockers are the standard ones that we use in Honda Shine. Motor transmission, combustion engine system, and exhaust system have been removed. If you see, there is no exhaust pipe both sides of the vehicles. It's been replaced with the electric hub motor. Now, if you see, there is ample amount of space that we can do a mid-mount, mid-drive motor also. The motorcycle donor, before removing the fuel engine and unnecessary parts, has been taken formal approval. We allowed it to do it, and then we repainted it and branded it with the EO2 logo, as you see on the petrol tank. Now, this vehicle is what we're going to bring down to you to have a showcase on the entire vehicle. This beautifully gives you an idea as to how a retrofitting is doable possible. Uh, you will have seen a lot of crude attempts at retrofitting the vehicles, but none of them are compliant capable. I mean, today, if you send it for homologation, they may not. This vehicle has already reached a stage where if I simply rebrand it not as a Honda Shine, we can get a formal official license to be launched as a new vehicle. So since the chassis is a copied one, we will have to restructure and redesign the chassis part. Okay, we will be taking part of the chassis also when we meet. Uh, we'll try to bring along a chassis, though not very critically. I can't confirm it, but nonetheless, this vehicle we can open and see how the chassis parts and components are built up. Now, different arrangements for re-engineering. Now, this is a more blown up photograph of the product. Where the vehicle battery is configured. If you see, it's a 72 volt, 40 Ah lithium ion battery pack. This one is from inverted. The battery cover is made of plastic, as you can see. It's a black color pre-formulated battery cover to resist water and dirt. Battery bed is made up of welded steel rectangular tubes, rather I would say angle irons, which have been formally painted so that it is kept, and the entire battery is slightly at an angle. If you see, that is more because of the stand. If you remove the stand, the battery will be erect position. So the moment you put the stand, the rear section of the vehicle goes up. The backside is the 2 kilowatt hub motor, which is the power factor of this particular vehicle. So that's a BLDC motor, hub motor. The controller is concealed. It is inside one of the side flanks, as you see. It has a DC-DC converter to power the accessories, SOC voltmeter, lighting, and indicators. Now, this is the critical part. Arrangement of the hub motor fitting. One, you have to make for certain specific fittings onto the rear swing arm. You need to remove the unnecessary part like the exhaust system and the chain drive mechanism to make way for this particular hub motor. The entire wheel assembly is readily available in the market. Apparently, they are Chinese, and now we've started getting Indians also. The mounting area is the rear part of the chassis. That needs some kind of a configuration and balancing because you can't have a tilting mechanism. If you see this portion that I'm talking about, this has to have a locking mechanism, as you can see. A big bolt, and there is a small protrusion which is there. It's a locking part of this. So that is the locking mechanism which locks it into the rear wheel, rear swing arm. Sorry. Okay. This you require very skilled mechanical manpower to get it mounted. So we are going to open and close this particular structure in Hyderabad. By cutting and designing, we create an empty shape so that we can easily fit the shaft of the hub motor with the help of nuts and bolts in the rear part of the chassis. We have shown the entire assembly on the right side in an open format also. So you can very well zoom onto it, right? This is how the entire hub motor is. In this case, the entire assembly changes for the stator and rotor, and you have a wire. If you see, there is a thick orange covered wire which is coming out, which is essentially powering and controlling the motor. So this wire essentially is entered into the axle part of it, which is fit here in the rear axle. So we are going to do a hands-on onto all of this, and especially, I mean, all those who are absent, I can very well say they are kind of missing out some very, very super exciting feature that we're going to showcase in Hyderabad, right? The best part is everybody tries to get his hands on onto these vehicles. Not only the bike, we will have 3 or 4 scooters also. So the size changes. The size of the motor is plus or minus, thoda upar niche hota hai. and typically these are mounted on alloy wheels. We have a variant where these motors can be mounted on spoke wheel also. These kind of motorcycles have started hitting the market now. I'm sure Hyderabad will also have a couple of such motors. The second component that we do is arrangement of the battery component. You should always try to find the best of the material which is available onto the market. So we went shipping for batteries. We found inverted and Trontech. These were the two best. In fact, we are using these two batteries only. The toughest part of retrofitting becomes the battery, fitting. First, we have to create a bed for the battery, the help of welding nuts and bolts arrangement. Again, this is part of fabrication. What we have shown you is a right side where, bottom part, you have got the footrest, which is coming out, which is standard to the bike, the same thing. So we have just made adjustment. Normally in a petrol vehicle, this thing is not available. So you need to design it appropriately as per the specifications of your battery. After removing the combustion system of the engine, we calculate the empty space left and the dimensions of the battery. So this is the first step also when you do the chassis design. Chassis design, this is critical. Tomorrow, if you slightly elongated vehicle, you can easily put two such batteries. So one battery gives you around 80-90 kilometers. Two battery will be able to give you easily 160 to 170 kilometers. That's a lot of drive as far as battery pack is concerned. This single battery pack costs you around 50-55 grand. It's a costly battery. So before I go over to the next slide, I would like to know, have you guys been able to understand? Can I simply see a couple of yes or no on the chat box, please? Hello, friends. Okay, these are only 2, 3, 4, 5. Others are sleeping or what? 7, 8. Okay, so the class is at least 50% live. Again, it stopped at 9. Only 9 candidates listening to us. And if you're feeling sleepy, you can say, sir, it's boring. We are going to come and do an end of the slideshow and then we will jump over to this 11. Friends, we are nearly 20 to 23 people on this class and only 11 yeses. So others, I'm waiting. 12. We're going to record all this, huh? Goes into a part of your assessment. Those who have not said yes or no, we're going to ask them why. This is not just to participate here. Huh? Still number is at 12. So I can very well say people have logged onto it and switched off their minds and ears. So one more yes. And also requested 14. I can effectively feel that 10 people are sleeping as far as this batch is concerned. Now 15. I should not be required to wake you up because when I'm meeting you physically, you will be there in front of me. 15 guys saying yes. There's just 60% of the class. Still 7 or 8 people to say yes or no. Now arrangement of controller. Controller of the electrical vehicles is the brain. Now here it has been shown as part of inside the vehicle, which is not the fact. That's where the hall sensor is. It is packed in two sections. One, if you can see my mouse, there's a small section which is covered here and the battery part. Sorry. Right. So it's an electronic device. So the proper positioning, safety, and it has to be properly kept so that, it's well ensconced, does not bump off or move around while the vehicle is being driven. It is the brains of the vehicle, which controls all parameters like checking for what the voltage, the electricity on the battery, its charging component, feedback to the acceleration part of it, controlling with the motors. We place the controller in the central part of the donor vehicle where it is protected from water and dirt, which is slightly on the left side and the top of the battery. Central positioning of the controller makes connection easy between the battery, motor, and other parts, and it's done by wire harness. If you see, the wire harness is barely concealed in this entire bike. It's all hidden between the petrol tank. You just see one orange color wire coming out from the motor side. Battery, though, it is not being shown because we've concealed it effectively below the bike's external contours. And you would obviously see it when you are looking at the handle side of it. Wait a second, we will take a couple of look, go back. If you see the entire vehicle out here, okay. Now, if you see this vehicle, you can hardly see the wiring except for the front next to the handle, right? You can see that if I explode it just below where you have 72-volt 40Ah, this is where the wire is being displayed. That too, because of its black color, it is completely concealed. Otherwise, internal to the bike, you can hardly see a loose wire dangling here or there, which is what makes this bike pretty neat and clean. Obviously, there are still some components which are visible, but so is the fact about this battery. Right. We come to, sorry, the next part of this vehicle, which is the DC-DC converter. Now, visible, guys? Is it visible? Yeah, thanks. We can't connect the other electrical parts such as horn, battery connector, indicators, tail, etc. with the direct battery directly, because these electrical parts operate on 12 volts. In fact, all petrol vehicles, car, bus, everything has its entire electronic wiring on the accessories, which is lighting, horns, indicators, headlight, tail light, and display on 12 volt or 5 volt. Since our battery is 72 volt, in fact, the standard configuration that we use is 48 volt, 60 volt, or 72 volt. So we need to be dead sure that this voltage that we are feeding is 12 volts. To ensure that this power is on 12 volts, either you put up a 12 volt battery separately, or you put in a connector which converts this voltage from 60, 72, or 48 to 12 volts. If we directly connect the electrical volt parts to a high voltage battery, it will lead to short circuits and damage to the electrical parts. So this will we need to ensure that this is a critical part. In fact, any electrical vehicle worth its salt will always have a DC-DC converter. Its primary task is one and only one, which is it will convert your voltage from whatever the inputs, as I specified, 48, 62, 60, and 72 to 12 volts. That is the reason why we use DC-DC converter to maintain a sufficient amount of voltage in the system. It's also an electronic device. It is not a transformer, first of all, because in DC, you just reduce the voltage. So again, it needs to be placed safely. It requires a formal thermal conducting cover. It does heat up over a period of time, and it requires to be placed in such a manner that it has an airflow and does not overheat, so that it burns out. It will ultimately, conk off your display. You will not be able to see your SOC voltmeter, your speed, lights, indicators, horns will not work. So we have to place it safely beside the controller where it is protected from water and dust. So guys, this, as I told you, brings us virtually to the end of the entire session today. As I told you, we've tried to cover it up and in 50 to 60 minutes. 60 minutes isn't there. We've covered it in 50 minutes. So that completes your entire you know display about the two-wheelers. Similar kind of process can be done on three-wheelers and four-wheelers also. But as I told you, today's session is going to be more exposed on the Q&A session, and this is the vehicle that we are going to bring across for the entire batches R&D, dissection, opening up and assembling again. So you can do it. There are some speed controllers that we've deliberately disturbed in this entire setting. We would like to see how the batch is understood and do it. So that's it from me, guys. I will be stopping the screen share here, and we will officially go over to the Q&A session. You can start either on the chat box, or you can unmute yourself, raise your hands and start asking questions. So I am open for questioning now.
Sir, good evening, sir.
Hi Uday. Good evening.
Sir, I have a doubt on DC to DC converter. So
Sure.
as per my knowledge, it will improve we will use buck or boost converter to increase or decrease the DC output level. So
Correct.
why it is needed in this EVs?
Sir, EVs, your battery power typically is not 12 volts.
Okay.
If you look at your regular bike or scooter, you will have a small 12-volt battery. It's a lead acid battery. The
Yes,
job
sir.
of that particular battery is, if it's a self-start device, it will help in the initial ignition of the vehicle. And in the long run, it helps in maintaining and driving all the electronic part and component. As far as the electrical vehicle is concerned, you don't get a separate battery which is of 12 volt. To ensure that you get a consistent and continuous 12 volt battery power, the same battery which is your 72-volt battery is taken as a source, but then you can't feed it directly into the various electrical components. So you need an intermittent electronics component which will step it down to 12 volts. Otherwise, other components will either not work because of 72 volts, or they will burn out.
Okay. So we are using some higher voltage batteries. So just to use the exact voltage of the some components, we are using this DC to DC converter.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, sir. Got it. So what is the operating voltage for these motors?
The one we showed you and the one you will operate upon is a 72-volt motor.
Okay, so this DC to DC converter is only for some electronic components.
Correct. They are critical components. They will typically drive your headlight, tail light, indicators, and your SOC voltmeter, which is your display meter.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, sir. Got it. Thank you.
This is Nagula Sai. I'll just answer that and then I'll take up the next question. Sir, as of now, do you face any issue with Honda Shine like patents, etc.? To be very frank, this is an education model. This is not a road approved model, so you can technically drive it, but it's not an official model with a number plate that you can sell it commercially. We utilize it only for the sake of learning and education. Yes, Saiteja, does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
One more question: which type of material used in hub motor? This question is regarding wiring system in the hub motor. Now, Sivateja, this is. Can you unmute yourself and ask me this question? I didn't understand that. Material as in we use copper.
Sorry, as you shown in slide,
Uh-huh.
you shown the internal part of hub motor, sir.
Correct.
There are wiring system in it, sir.
Correct.
It looks like copper, I think so, sir. So I'm asking about that materials.
Sir, it's a copper wire. It is covered, or there's some kind of a film on top of the copper wire.
Yes, sir.
It is part of the motors. I guess motors has been covered for you guys now. Your motor session would have been over by now.
Yes.
So in motor, if you remember, we had a stator, we had a rotor. One part has got fixed permanent magnet, the other part has got the coils. The fixed magnet creates the magnetic field across the motor. It's a permanent magnetic field. If you see, the magnets are permanent in these kind of things. They are neodymium magnets, rare earth material magnets. The coil creates the flux because of which the movement starts. So the voltage and the current, when you vary it, the speed will go up or down. And if you change the polarity of that motor, it will either go clockwise or anti-clockwise. That's how you control the forward and the rear movement.
Okay, sir.
That's how the motor works.
As your belongs to manufacturing department, you said you are manufacturing EV vehicles, sir. So which type of motors do you use, sir? In the mean hub motors or mid-drive motors, sir, in your vehicles?
We are using both. Look, our business model is we design and develop a vehicle.
Yes, sir.
Then we hand it over to a OEM who wishes to take it up further on from there onwards.
Is
So
there any
will-
difference between those motors, sir?
Both are BLDC motors. We are going to bring you both the motors, mid mount as which is mid mount is nothing. I mean, if you have seen a e-rickshaw,
Yes, sir.
the motor which is mounted between the axle, it's a mid mount motor. So it is a external motor, and hub motor sits right inside the wheel.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So the efficiency in a hub motor is much higher, but by design it is uh, how do you call it? By design it is supposed to take a lot of beating because it's at the axle point you have the maximum amount of jerks.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now, Lakan, your question, sir. Will there be any performance difference between new EVs and retrofitted EVs because we use a old structure in a retrofit EV? Obviously, yes. Lakan, you need to understand when a new vehicle is designed, they have structured and developed it from the scratch. But since electric vehicles are so modularly defined, you have the motor which fits right inside the wheel. So technically, the wheel itself is the engine. So whether you do it in a new one, if you have a hub motor, you do it in new one or old one, it's one and the same. Only when you have mechanical features like if you have seen in Revolt, which is the Micromax vehicle, they have a nylon belt which drives the rear wheel. It's a mid-mount motor. So when you talk about what kind of this thing performance is there, uh, I don't know if many of you have driven a Revolt or not. It's a beautiful bike. But if you see a regular bike, petrol bike, it is driven by chain and shaft. In Revolt, sorry, the belt is a nylon belt. It has got grooves and that drives it. It's a fairly large wheel behind. I hope, Lakan, it answers your query. Thanks. Okay, Sai
Sir,
Tejas. Yes.
sir, regarding batteries,
Ah,
so every battery will be in a black color only. Is there any standard to maintain the color as a black only?
no, it depends upon your choice. You can color it red, black, blue. It's a box.
Like
You can,
many batteries I have seen only in black color.
no, as I told you, that is not a standard. It's by default a preference. It's the cover of the box. The battery itself, the cells are blue. Normally, I have seen is either blue or gray. That's a kind of a polyfilm coating which is there on top of the cell. The boxes which are utilized are largely black boxes. They can be plastic, they can be metal, they can be aluminum boxes also.
Yeah. Okay, sir.
Okay, Sai Teja sir, which one is good one? Connecting ICE to EV or to EV with own design in new startup point of view? I didn't understand this question. Sai, if you can stress upon it. Sai, are you there? Sai Teja, I didn't get your question. you are silent? I kind of didn't get your question. Am I audible, guys?
Yes, sir. It's audible only.
Uh,
So this
so,
to let it means unmute the mic.
I mean, okay, let me reformat it of what I understood from the question. You're trying to say that you are a startup, and from a startup point of view, should you design a new EV or convert a existing EV? Look, if you are looking to hit the market and uh, start selling it, let me be very frank. Customers prefer a new vehicle. First preference of the customer. While it is very lucrative to understand the retrofit as a business, in terms of sheer numbers and projections, which are government projections or private assessment party projections. Nonetheless, from a customer point of view, his first preference will always be to buy a new vehicle. And I'll give you an example. Suppose I'm a customer, I have an old Hero Splendor. It's already reached its end of age, 11 to 12 years old. I mean, I don't drive it anymore as a petrol vehicle. And someone gives me an option, sir, 55,000, your bike, we will make completely as a new electric vehicle. And I have alternate of buying a scooter at 75,000 rupees. So it's a 20,000 gap, decent gap. What should be the first preference? A person like me would prefer buying a new vehicle. Unless and until I have a requirement of two vehicles where I might optimize on my bike and I will say, okay, give it across. So I hope I have clarified that, because it's completely a personal choice, and personal choice always tends to bend more towards new vehicles which look ergonomically beautiful. That's my personal choice. I'll spend 15-20 grand. But yes, if it is like 50,000 and 1 lakh, then the gap is huge. Then I'd most probably go for a retrofit. Today, the gap is hardly 15-20,000 rupees, because technically people find it difficult to understand that the battery is new, the motor is new, only the structure is old. But that is what is visible to the naked eyes. Any more questions? Anything you would like to ask further on?
Oh, sir, thank you.
Okay. Now, one query that I have more with Renuka. Renuka, how many batch people who are yet to take the last assessment?
Sir, 25, sir.
All 25 have taken?
Yes, sir. 25 people are completed.
Great, wonderful. So that just leaves us three more batches who have to give their presentations, and one batch which has been asked to give the presentation again.
Yes, sir. Tomorrow.
Correct. So we will schedule that. Uh, Let me know the batch which is going to give the presentation. We will have assessment. I don't know whether we are going to give the assessment tomorrow itself, because we have two sessions. And
Yes.
week after, we are actually going to plan to come and meet on 12th. We start our entire discussion from 12th. So let me also give you a little bit of briefing on how we will go about doing this. As I told you, our entire training methodology is completely different. Theory is something that we're already covering online itself. So when we meet, typically we expect 9:30 or 10 o'clock that everyday schedule will start. So this is going to be a highly interactive one. We are going to share, we have actually 7 batches. So we will be sharing the presentation. Every batch out of the 7 will get an opportunity to present 2 of these classes. So these presentations are going to be handed over to you on the Edify Path sharing mechanism. Every batch will get the opportunity of representing and training the entire batch on 2 specific subjects that we are going to specify. You will hear from Renuka madam or from Rohit sir on this subject. So we have an entire detailed schedule from 12th onwards till 25th. Every
Yes.
day, first half is going to be theory that you're going to discuss one batch from you, seven batches. So every batch will get one representation per week. So 12th to 18th is week 1. Sunday we have assessments and physical exam. Physical exam in the sense you will get 3 days to open up 3 or 4 vehicles in front of your eyes, nut bolts, everything. Initially, it will be assisted by a mechanical help in under our supervision. Then you are going to do it yourself. So it is going to be completely on the vehicle, the neat and every part and component, the wire harness, connectors, removing, attaching, and then every individual has to undergo and go through it. I mean, by the time this course is complete, you guys will be professionals who can at least do the vehicles assembling, disassembling, opening of the DC converter as well as the motors. So we're going to give you that kind of a exposure. You guys need to come prepared on the theory part, plus the second half it's typically going to be exposure. First day is introduction, so we do a thorough introduction with all the participants who are there. There will be a docket that we are going to share. We need your individual resumes. This docket is individual to you. It's in a PDF or a soft format. Assessment 1, assessment 2. We know a lot of people who are participating, but there are many people who are not participating. So it doesn't make sense that you are hiding in the 25 people. Because if you are interested in your careers, you need to come up and participate. If you're not participating, it gives us a very negative feedback saying, I don't know whether you guys are learning or not, right? And we don't want to enter into that phase of pure assessment. Some of you are working, some of you are freshers. We need active participation. And I believe my words, unless and until you guys are good in presentations, giving off your skills, you will not be able to succeed in interviews. Our objective is not only imparting knowledge on the electric vehicles, our objective is to ensure you understand the subject. Plus, most critical thing, you are able to convey that to the people who are going to interview you. So we will be trying to get a couple of mock sessions by 24th or 25th. We may be getting a couple of companies, but again, it's a question mark. Right now, we don't want to expose you unless and until we are good. And I'm sure that you guys have what it takes to, attempt an interview. Plus, members who are already working, we will take their preference, what level and kind that they're looking forward to. So we would also give exposure to people who are looking for a career, but then please take it very, 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 very seriously. I mean, what I find is attendance, getting assessment. I know you have your own internal challenges, but then take it seriously. You spend some good amount of money. And this is one of the best across the entire country. There is no other company which actually brings motors, controllers, vehicles in front of you and gives you that exposure. So I believe, thanks a ton, we are prepared. Renuka ma'am, have we given the people who are going to get the presentation slots tomorrow?
Yes, sir. Sir,
That
actually, we already received like what they have to prepare, everything we are received, sir.
Okay.
So tomorrow they're going to give the presentation, and coming to one team, sir, okay, they are not given the idea. So I think it's Uday Rajesh. I'm just Rajesh.
Yes, ma'am.
You're having some query now related of your idea, because idea about the product.
Sir, my topic is EV startup on EV batteries.
Okay.
So I have some different ideas, sir. So
Yeah,
can
please.
Okay, so I will present it tomorrow.
No, you tell me what is the idea.
Like so now every vehicle is having a metal body or a plastic bodies.
Correct.
So instead of that, can we use some solar panels?
Solar panels will be ceiling, or you want to keep it on the body itself?
On the body itself, sir. So I can charge one. I will maintain two batteries, which is runs with the motor, and one with charging by this solar panels.
Uday, have you worked in solar field?
No, sir.
Okay, now let me give you small feedback. I don't want to dishearten you. You need, what is the size of one solar panel?
I don't know, sir, exactly.
Okay, the one that you see on a rooftop,
Okay.
That is roughly around 2.5 feet by 5 feet. You see
Okay.
those square kind of things. Now, if you look at the surface area of a two-wheeler,
Okay.
if you take the right side, the left side, and the front mudguards, you will not even come up with 5 or 6% of the total surface area that is required by a solar panel.
Sir, I have seen some solar lamps. So
Yes,
that is like only
solar lamp is 5 watt, 10 watt, 11 watt bulbs, LED, just like headlight.
Yeah.
Right. And the battery that you require is at least 1.5 to 2 kilowatt to drive a vehicle. That battery is not even 0.05 kilowatt kind of a battery to drive one lamp, maximum 2 lamps.
And
So you need at least 1 month of sunshine in a battery to power that entire vehicle to its fuller capacity.
if
I
not,
don't want to dishearten you. People have tried
yes,
it
sir.
with solar power on e-rickshaws, because you get that kind of a surface area on the roof. First of all, for solar, it is very important that your panel is perpendicular to sunlight as much as
Yes.
possible. The more angular the light falls onto it, the electricity production falls as far as the solar lamp is concerned.
Yes, sir.
Right. So the moment you do it, now this I'm talking and giving the feedback purely from a market perspective. Solar creation, that solar electricity creation, you need a complete rooftop if you need to create ample amount of electricity to charge your vehicle with one full sun's exposure. Entire rooftop is roughly around, say, 1,000 square feet of roof. On a bike, you will not even get 4 or 5 square feet.
Sir, if not in two-wheelers, we can use in four-wheelers, a car, either cars or buses also.
Yes,
So,
that is doable. That is doable. Very much doable. You can do that. No problems.
yes, that is what my idea.
Fair
Wherever
enough.
it is
Fair,
possible.
fair enough. Fair enough. Renuka, that is approved. We would like to see the idea. Four-wheelers, done.
Okay, sir.
Any other group has any query? Is that matter closed? Any other group has any query? Okay, now that is Sai Teja, which is saying no. I would prefer to have others to say either write a yes or a no on the chat box itself. That gives me this thing. We will also be sharing a feedback of the faculty. You primarily face two faculties. Physically, you will see me and couple of guest lectures in Hyderabad. So that is only one from Venkatesh as a no, sir. Again, I don't need to pull up your guys from a caller. You please put chat box yes or no. I will understand whether the feedback is genuine, not genuine. There is some query that has to be answered. Okay, so I would really love to see that coming across. So we are going to share a link which is going to be feedback of the faculties. You have seen Govind sir, and today is probably my first lecture after our introductory lecture. At Hyderabad, you will face me and Nabangshu sir. So we will have a very lively session. But as I told you, 14 days, every group gets to give 2 presentations. They are also on assessment. We will have at least 5 or 6 case studies and 6 days of hardcore practical. On the EVs itself, we're going to open up everything everywhere, and then we are going to reconfigure and fix it up back. Sounds good?
Yes, sir.
So guys, today we reach our end of the session. Now I have only seen 8 no's. What about others? Please, before we leave, at least let us do the composition completely. This is going into records, mind you, and these records help you or don't help you if you are not participating. So having said that, thanks a lot for covering on the 12th session. we meet tomorrow again by 4:30. We have 2 sessions tomorrow. We will try to cover up the remaining part of the presentations. And obviously there will be one assessment after the last Saturday, this Saturday, this week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. Coming Saturday next week would be the last session. So another 5 more sessions, and the online classes will be over. We have done roughly around 60% of the classes, 40% are pending. After tomorrow, I think only 30% will be pending for the last week. So we are enjoying the game along with you guys. We would like to see some creative ideas on chassis development, vehicle design development. We're going to have some great fun when we meet across. And personally, I would love to go around sightseeing something in Hyderabad. So that's it for today. Thanks a lot. Thanks
Yes,
for
sir.
coming
Thank you,
across.
sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Sujay sir, Nabansu sir. So for all students, thank you so much for this class today.
Yep, yep. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye. Nabansu sir, please stop the recording, sir. After that, I'm just closing the session.